That's all right. Maybe I can see my Santa hat on my sweater. I don't think they can see it on Instagram. Right. I'll show y'all my Santa hat sweater. All right. It is Monday night and we are on Monday Night Chat with SK. I want to first say I apologize for joining late today. I'm actually not feeling well, but in integrity of my word and what I set out to do for Monday Night Chat, I decided that it was important for me to join anyway. So again, I apologize to all my viewers for joining a little late today. And I have a guest today who is going to introduce herself. She's going to share her name and she's going to share her occupation. And before we do that, I just want to share that today's topic is about the importance of Black women in the educational system. We had this conversation with two amazing Black gentlemen, or African American gentlemen, however you want to identify, who shared about their experience and the validity and their presence in the educational system and how it affects or impacts children of color who can see someone who looks like them in a leadership role, whether it be an educator, principal, um, or someone who is there to provide and or be a part of their educational experience. So tonight I wanted to bring on a woman of color, a Black woman, African American woman, who is also an educator, to just talk about her experience as an educator and how she feels that she impacts um, children of color or just children in general as being a woman, a Black woman in the educational system. Because I just want to note that even though a lot of times the impact or the impact we want to see is for the children of color, but the impact is important for children of all cultures because then they get to see that everybody gets to go, right? And that it's not one or the other. And so when you see this diversity in our educators, they can then see a mirror of themselves in leadership. So now, without further ado, I'm going to have my guest speaker introduce herself. Please tell my audience your name and occupation.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here today. So my name is Jessica, and I'm the founder of the Reading Playground, and we focus on helping children develop foundation reading skills through play and prepare them for kindergarten. So that's a bit about me.
Awesome. And your what is it called again?
The Reading Playground, that's the
The
name
reading
of
program.
our program. Yeah.
The reading program, is it an in-person program or is it online or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're online. So this program came through the pandemic because a lot of kids ages 3 to 5, there was no schooling for them. It started at kindergarten, if that. So many parents were like, what do I do with my kid? And so we developed this program for them to have some skills so that when they start kindergarten, they're not behind. Unfortunately, a lot of kids were behind when they started school. Um,
Absolutely.
and online schooling has still been something that parents find valuable. So we offer our service. So we're all over, so we have kids from all over the country since we're online. So that adds in another nice aspect for our discussion today about being a Black woman in education and then reaching kids all over the country. So I can't wait to chat about it.
Awesome. Thank you. I just want to share that, a fun fact, or not even so much a fun fact, but my opinion on reading. Uh, I found that the reason why I became such a strong communicator is because I started to read. For a long time, I wasn't a talker, believe it or not. Like I was talkative, like around my family and friends. Um, but if you had asked me, let's say when I was about 10, what I wanted to do, I probably would never have said like podcasting or anything like that. But I was very talkative. I was like, but I was shy at the same time. I didn't like public speaking or standing in front of the room. However, I was a singer. So a lot of it was like kind of like natural, but like it just I don't know. I think the first time I saw myself in like this leadership speaking up role, I remember I was in a playground and this girl was being bullied. And
Mm-hmm.
I stood on the, those little circle things that used to be in the playground, look like little
Yeah,
cake.
yeah, yeah.
I stood on top of it and I was
Yeah.
like, you're gonna leave her alone. I think that was my
I
first
see
sense of
you.
advocacy. But what made me such a small communicator and something I feel like or communicate, yeah, that made me a strong communicator. And something that I think is the reason why a lot of kids don't speak up is they don't have a lot of words to use.
Yeah, it's amazing that you bring out that point because I also tutor older children in
Mm-hmm.
reading. And most of the time, when we're just having a normal conversation,
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand or they're not able to communicate effectively, or they use very basic words like good, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't been read to and they haven't been exposed to all the language that's available.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we expect our kids to succeed if they don't have language? It's all,
Absolutely.
and this is why I'm so passionate about starting young. Because if you don't
Yeah.
start them young, you're going to have issues when they get older. And when they get older, it's harder.
Mhm.
So we really, it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And I know my mother didn't read to us, but music was the thing that how we learned language. Because she played a whole lot of music, probably music that we probably shouldn't have been listening to. But
Huh?
we listened to a lot of music, and around this time she would be playing the Jackson 5 Christmas or the
Mhm,
Temptation Christmas album.
mhm.
Um, and there was another one. It was like a gospel type of Christmas album she would be playing, and she used music to educate us. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that point, and we definitely have to have a Monday night chat about the importance of reading.
Yeah.
Because I found reason I was just talking to my son about it. He was talking about the same thing, like being able to be a communicator, and he felt the same thing. And my son is 25. He was saying like, I feel like I don't have strong dialogue because I'm not reading. He was like, and I even like lack in certain type of like problem solving skills, because reading also teach you problem solving, because if there's a problem in the book, you know how the character's handling it, you could use that later on in your own situation.
Right. And that's exactly why our program is based on play, right? Because children have, it's just like in the wild. How do cubs learn how to exist and survive? They
Mm-hmm.
play, right? They problem solve with the other little cubs that's there on if I'm going to tackle you this way, what's going to happen next, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how our children learn. So if you're reading to them, if you're reading a story and you're reenacting the story, putting those facial expressions, what's going to happen to the character next, letting them think about it. Now, when they get older and they come across problems, they're going to be able to solve them because they were exposed. Yeah, so we're definitely going to have that conversation.
Yeah,
And I love that you talk about
absolutely.
I love that you
Yeah.
talk about music too,
So
because that helps with reading also.
absolutely. My kids listen to Schoolhouse Rock. We can go for hours about
Yeah, we
that
can.
stuff.
Okay, so back on track, back on track.
So but we can use this line of conversation to go into what we're supposed to be talking about tonight by with this one question of um this idea that children of color, and we hear the statistics all the time, are behind every other culture when it comes to reading. Um, and historically, there have been Black women in the educational system. I want to say what from the maybe the 70s on, or probably sooner. But when you see movies about educators from the 50s and 60s, you don't see people of color. And so my question is, do you think that having women of color in the educational system makes a huge impact on how kids learn?
It makes a huge impact because it's color and just having someone to identify with, right? Because
Mhm.
culture plays a role in how we learn and how we think. So if you're going to have an educator, but they can't identify with you culturally, it's more difficult to learn. It's almost like learning a second language, right? If you don't know the second language, you don't know that culture, you don't know how they think, so it's difficult. It's the same thing with basic education. If you don't have someone that you can look up to, someone that understands how you think, especially if like I'm from a Caribbean background, if I have Caribbean students and they're having issues with their parents, I understand what that means. I understand what that looks
Right.
like. And I can
Mhm.
and I can talk to the parents effectively because they have a certain type of mindset in order to help their children. I'm also Black from New York and Brooklyn. So if I'm talking to parents, especially with the young kids, because it's not only students, but it's with the parent. Because it starts,
Right. That's,
you can
and I
talk
think that's where it is. That's
exactly.
where the huge impact is, because a lot of times, and I know for myself, there were times when my daughter would have teachers who were either white. Most of the time they were white. I don't think she's ever had a Hispanic teacher
Mhm.
or an Asian teacher or something. I think she may have had a Asian principal. My son had more diversity when it came to his teachers. He had a Spanish teacher. He had a Asian not Asian. I don't even know how to say it anymore. I don't know what to say. I don't know the inclusive words anymore. I'm good. I'm
Don't
just
get
gonna
in trouble.
apologize.
Let's not get in trouble.
You get in trouble. I'm just gonna say of a different culture, right?
Yes.
Um, and what it will be times when I would be in the classroom and you could see the judgment, especially in Brooklyn. Like the first, and they would say things to me that were a microaggressive, like microaggressive statements, assumptions, judgment, and it's like you don't know what you're talking about. But you know what? I had those experiences with teachers of other colors, or other cultures. However, believe it or not,
I believe
a
it.
lot of my
Mhm.
conflict was with teachers and leaders that look like me.
I believe it because there's there's this fine line, right, where culture becomes important, but just being a human being and understanding that other people are humans is important. So you can have
Mhm.
all the Black teachers and you can still have issues because the other element that's important is being able to be a good communicator, being
Mhm.
empathetic towards others. Those
Mhm.
skills are also important, especially for me as a Black woman. I feel like it's even more important because there's all these stereotypes of how we are, how we act, the things that we do. It's so important that we put on a person that is approachable and understanding to all so we can set that example for our kids and be approachable to the parents because it is a teamwork effort in order to help their child improve, you know?
Do you think there's more pressure on teachers of color, especially Black women teachers, to discipline the children in schools?
So I'm just going to talk from my personal experience, and
Hmm.
I'm myself, regardless of what others. I've tried hard to be myself and manage my class the way I know I should manage my class, right? Yes, I'm
Hmm.
Black, but I'm also Jessica, And so I want people to respect me and my teaching style for who I am, not for perceived notions. And in order for that to happen, I have to stay true to myself and my belief systems and how I educate my students instead of worrying about all the outside noise. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. But I'm sure educators in general feel that pressure that your class has to succeed because you're Black, right?
Hmm.
I'm sure like, especially the minorities, you feel that pressure, especially if you have a minority class. They have to
Yeah.
succeed. Oh, they didn't pass because, mhm,
Yeah. Oh, you let them do what they want to do. I, one of my pet peeves is like, be yourself, right? Don't feel the need to code switch for me, right? And I found that there were times when Black women educators would approach me with this like sister girl approach because they assume that this is how I need to be talked to because of how I look. But I was the type of parent that would come to parent teacher conferences with a notebook and business cards because you're not going to tell me you don't know my number and my email.
Right. Yeah.
And I have questions and I want to take notes.
Yeah.
I used to strategize how I would do parent teacher conferences. I'm going to go to the teachers where my kids are not doing well with. I don't need to see the teacher. If they're doing okay in those classes, they're passing those classes. If I'm on a time limit, because you would be on a time limit with it. They like, oh, parent teacher conference from 6 to 8. There's a bunch of parents. Some of the schools, not all schools had good turnout, but some of the schools, you getting off work, you getting there probably at 6 or 6:30. You gotta rush, sign in, sign your name, sign that. By the time you get up the 15 flights of stairs you gotta go to get to the classroom, it's 6:45, and you gotta see 5 or 6 teachers.
Yeah.
So I still be like, okay, I gotta strategize this. I gotta see the teachers where my child is struggling. And so I would go with questions. Okay, these are my 4 to 5 questions. And I want to take notes. I want to know what's the plan moving forward to improve these grades.
They were taken back, I'm sure.
And I could not stand when I come prepared and ready to go, and you want to talk my head off with mundane information. My thing to any teacher was, how long is a semester? What? 3 months, maybe?
Quarterly.
So if it's 3 months from the time my child sits in your class from the first day to the time that I get to you for parent teacher conferences, and my child fails that whole 3 months, and you have not yet once called me for intervention, who problem is it?
So I'm gonna play devil as advocate.
I know you are, because you're a teacher.
Because I'm a teacher. Okay. So there's two things, right? One, you're the minority as a parent. So as an educator, I'm gonna speak about myself, because if my kids are failing, I'm stalking parents. You need to show up because your kid's failing, and you're not gonna blame me. So that's my perspective as a teacher. However, in general, parents, and it's not even cultural, it's economic, they either don't care or don't have time. So the fact that you're coming prepared, they're taken back. The other side of it, my question would be, when I send a test home, why doesn't the parent know that their child failed? Why does it have to be at parent-teacher conference and after 3 months that you realize your child's not passing?
Right. And all of that is valid. I'm also the parent that's in the school, have a relationship with the principal, is on the PTA, was the president of the PTA. You see me often. Kids will not come home. My son, his whole educational experience, never took a school picture. You know why? He would never bring the form home. His book bag looked like ground zero right after 9/11. I said, Kayvon, what even is in there? What even is in there? And my thing was like, Kayvon would be passing tests. Kayvon was great at tests. And my question would be, why is he failing? Oh, he did well, but he talks a lot in class. When Sanaya was in school, because they have very different experiences, and this is not like a big up for charters, those people harassed me.
I'm sure they did. That's funding.
I couldn't walk in the building.
See, that's another thing. It's funding. That's why they harassed you, right? So charter school is special because they get money, but also if kids don't pass at a certain level, they lose funding. In a public school, they push all the kids there, funding or no funding. They don't care about the public school kids. So of course the charter school stalked you. That's the only way
Stalked
they get
me.
paid. That's the
Sanaya
only way
couldn't
they
get away
get
with,
paid.
she couldn't get away with anything.
I'm
I feel like if
sure.
these people call my phone again, they're gonna have to adopt her because I'm done. I was just like, what? And then there was an expectation. Now, in addition to me being the PTA president on their schools, I was a PTA president in Cape Barnes High School. I used to just attend the PTA meetings in Cape Barnes School. I mean, in Sanaya School. But Sanaya School had a different structure. The structure at our school was parents had a required 15 hours of volunteer hours in the school. Right. So you had to work that into your work schedule. You had to tell your boss on 2 months out of the week, out of the 2 days out of the month, I have to go to my kid's school. The other thing is like if Sanaya got in school suspension or something like that, or if there was a behavior issue, they would have this thing called Parents Observance Day. So let's say your child got demerits 3 days in a row or 3 times or whatever. There would be a meeting and they'd be like, well, the consequence, or it wouldn't be those suspension for 3 days. No, it would be parents, because they would hit us. Like, there's an accountability. We're not gonna send a kid home to lose learning time.
Right.
You're gonna come here. You're gonna come here. So then it like charge the parents like, I can't miss work, so you're gonna have to get it together. Right. So Naya used to go to school and rip her tights every day. For what? I don't know. So I would get a phone call, I ripped her tights. And I'm like, well, so Naya just gonna have to have rip tights. I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. But I felt like I was more informed. I felt like there was a structure. And I was on the community education council for my district. And there were times when I would try to push forward ways to build more communication with teachers and schools, and found out that PTAs can operate as a nonprofit to get more funding for public schools. And there was so much pushback because I heard the same thing as you said, the funding and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well, we can get more funding. Let's operate the PTA as a nonprofit. They can do fundraisers. Park Slope schools.
But listen, look, everything you're saying, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And if more parents were like you, then I can see that happening. But like I said, you're the minority. And it is but so much a teacher can do, then take your kid home and show you all their classwork for them to succeed. There's a part where the teachers do, and then they gotta go home, and where the parent needs to step in. If you want funding for your school, the parents are gonna have to step up, because educators are like, if you haven't realized, since the pandemic to now, educators are leaving the school at an alarming rate. This is because they are overworked and underpaid, and parents get more and more mad because their kids aren't passing and blaming the teachers. So what happens? Teachers start leaving. If parents want to see a change, they, just like how you are an advocate for your kids, this is who we need to have the conversation with, not educators.
Oh, I've had conversations with, I think the conversation really is with both, especially in our Black schools and in our public schools. Because I think because of the division, now I've had Black teachers. And back when I was going to school, they could whoop your tail. Okay? I have a very long name, Shamona. And I had a teacher, my second grade teacher, I love you, Miss Stevens, if you're out there in the cyber world. She used to have a ruler that when you caught up in her class, you would have to put your hand out and she would spell your name on your hand. Wow. I had a friend named Dawn, Lisa, Nikki.
4 letters.
I'm standing there, Shimona. So I'm there cutting up with these girls, Kim's,
Yeah.
They Kim, DA, whatever doing. And I'm sitting at Shamona. By the time she got to the last A, my hand was numb. I didn't feel it anymore. I was done. But I also know that seeing Miss Stevens, seeing Miss Bowie, seeing who was another? My kindergarten teachers were Black women, Miss Chandler and Miss Mazak. They were my were they pre-care or kindergarten? Because I remember, yeah, they were my kindergarten teachers. They did a very good job. I was at the top of one of the top kids in my class. It was when I got to first grade, I had this white woman as my teacher. And that goes back to the culture thing. I don't know what it was, but she had this expectation of me that was just unrealistic.
Mm.
And she, when I couldn't keep up, it was like she basically said to me, my little 7-year-old self, like, you're lazy. That's why you're not keeping up.
So
And that stuck with me for a very long time.
that's damage. Like I still remember my third grade math teacher putting up my math assignment on the board. He was Spanish. He put my math assignment test on the board and I failed. And I asked him, why did you put it up there? And he said, that's the best I can do. Like I remember it like it was yesterday. Like teachers can put so much damage on students.
Mm-hmm.
However, to your experience, I had the opposite experience in school. So I went
Mm-hmm.
to school in Park Slope.
Mm-hmm.
So I had majority white teachers in my school. My
Mm-hmm.
first Black teacher, maybe my science teacher was Black, but most of my teachers were white. And in junior high is when I had Black teachers in junior high
Mm-hmm.
school. So, and my school was mixed. So yeah, and my school was mixed. So uh the impact that race had on me was very different. And I think also impacts the way I teach now, because I have
Mm-hmm.
students from all over. One thing that I appreciate about my background is because as a Black woman, now I get to have multicultural students. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I get to expose them to Black educators, or if we're reading books together, I'm gonna pick out books with Black characters in there. Because most of the time,
But do
most
you
of the
guys
books don't.
have that flexibility, especially with the new policy, the new laws that they're trying to push? They're trying to, keep the dominant narrative going of Christopher Columbus and all those folk laws or folk tales that aren't true and are very divisive
That's
and
beauty.
minimalizing of other cultures.
Yeah. So that's the beauty of me having my own school. I can do whatever
Mhm.
I want. Nobody can
I
tell me
mean,
nothing.
listen,
you
you're
know,
right.
I
You're
can.
right. And and then the other thing is like, I don't beat up teachers, contrary to what you think.
I got some bruises, girl. And I'm just playing.
No, but I will hold you accountable. Like you're not gonna put it all on me because I remember one teacher said to me, she said, don't make any plans for graduation. I said, excuse me? She said, your son comes in my class. He looks very handsome and he looks very clean and put together. And he's always talking to the girls, but he doesn't do any work. And I'm saying to myself, Miss, I don't even know your name.
Mm.
Like I knew his math teacher very well. I knew the principal on a first name basis. I was a parent they called for quality review. When the district would come and do the quality review of the schools and want to know like what's going on in the school and they wanted a parent rep, I was that parent. You could reach me anytime. My number would never change. I was like 2.5 blocks away from the school.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I knew his teachers on a first name basis. This teacher, not for nothing, would never be there on parent teacher conferences. The expectation is you want me to be in your classroom every day. Or you're saying, okay, well, when I send things home, kids don't bring things home.
so
We
then
have to work together. You
So
have to
then
like
what would be the solution? What's
the
I
solution.
want to hear your solution, because as an educator, we
I'm
nicely print these things out for these kids.
mm-hmm,
We put
right.
them in their folder, right?
Uh-huh.
When we
Uh-huh.
leave the building, they're not our responsibility. So as a
We have
parent,
we have the beauty of technology.
mm,
We're not back in the 70s and 80s anymore. We are now in the 2000s where technology is amazing. Now there are some schools that are doing an amazing job by utilizing that. They have the apps now. I know out here in Long Island they have what is it called? I think it's called Parent Pool or something like that. And it's an app where teachers and parents can communicate with each other. You can go on the app and see your child's grades on the app. You can get announcements and things like that. So, and I get the funding. However, when these policies come forward with when they're doing the budget and stuff, I did advocacy. I did voter education. And I'm gonna guarantee you one thing, although people live in the communities and they work, and some of them work in the communities where they work, a lot of people, and it's all of us, whether educator or not, do not do our due diligence when it comes to voter education and do not go out and vote. You want better, you got to do that. Is a part of it. It's not just yelling at your principal or yelling at your superintendent about more funding. It's about getting into the political process and electing leaders who are thinking about education in a bigger way. Mayors, governors, our city council, our assembly people, and getting involved in the advocacy work, making and pushing your principals to hold communities accountable. There are parents. I'm a parent who had a kid in a traditional and a charter school, and I used to be an elected official. Set the tone, create the environment, create the culture where it's not just PTA gossiping and doing bake sales. They're really doing things that are, all you need is 5 parents. You got 5 parents. I know 5 parents sit in the PTA office and gossip in every school. Get them to do things that are going to bring funding into the school, not bake sales, cookie sales, picture day. Have them go into these elected officials' offices and push policy. There are free educational structures for parents to learn how to do that. I was an organizer. I used to run meetings in libraries.
Again, you are the minority. If you weren't, this would not even be an issue, right? If we have parents who were as passionate as you are about supporting your children, we would not have this conversation right now. So it's more, we have to touch people's attitudes. That's what needs to change. Because you can have 5 parents in the school over there, 5 parents in the school over there, and you still got 300 more schools where there's no parents who wants to work hard, or there are no educators, because some educators are lazy, or they just want to do the bake sale, or just want to do that. We need to touch attitudes to move people to.
But it has to be a part of the culture. There, I feel like people will rise to the expectation, and there is no expectation. There's, if you any article, like I remember I was looking when I was doing the conversation with the men, I was looking for articles around this topic, right? Like the impact of Black leaders, the impact of da da da, and I was just seeing. So I don't remember the numbers directly, but the majority of educators were white women and Black women. Black men were very small on the percentile of this group. But something that kind of like stuck out to me, where they were, in my role as a community organizer, I learned a lot of things. I learned about school funding. I learned that the prisons, so for one prisoner to be housed and fed and everything per year, they spend more money on that one prisoner than they do for one student, right? Almost 1/5 of the amount of money, right? The thing is, people do know, Jessica, and I think that what we do is we give people an out. We say, oh, they don't know, or they don't want to, or they're lazy. They do know. Some people do want to, they just don't have access.
I'm very curious if there were polls done in schools. How many parents know what you're talking about? I promise you, most of them don't. I promise you, because who's telling them?
I did a rally. I'm gonna tell you.
And most of them don't even show up to learn.
Let me tell you. We did a rally in City Hall. And I got a video I can send you. We did a rally at City Hall back in 2014. There were 21,000 people there. And that was one rally. And this is the charter school community. And this is what I'm saying. There was an expectation. You see what I'm saying? Nobody. But
I think it's important that you just said that they're in charter school. That's a huge.
But the thing is, charter school parents aren't aliens.
I don't
We're
know.
humans.
Let me tell you why. Let me give you another way to look at it, right? Again, if most people knew, stats would be different. When people know that there's free food at the church on the corner every Sunday, everybody's lined up to go get free food at the church on Sunday, right? When nobody knows, nobody's lined up because they don't know.
But that's my point to you. I would
but
say
what I'm
tradition.
saying is,
Yeah.
charter school parents is a different beast. Charter school is a different beast. If you gave me those stats for a public school, then I would say, okay, you have it. But that's the fact that you just said charter puts
But
it
this is what, and this is but my second point is half of us still had children in traditional schools, but there was not an ask. There was not an expectation. You get what I'm saying? There was an expectation of us. If we don't go to this rally, we don't get XYZ. No public school had ever said to us, if you don't do X, this you won't have XYZ. There was an expectation. There was a plan.
You know why? There's no XYZ in a public school. There's no XYZ. Charter school has XYZ to tell you, I'm going to pull this from you if you don't attend. In a public school, it is mandatory for you to educate these kids and you need to pass them through. What are you taking from the kids in a public school? What are you taking from the parents? The teachers
and that's and
there's
that's
nothing.
all, but that's all policy. That's what I'm saying. That's the thing is, public schools, traditional public schools can have the same thing. We all live I live in the same neighborhoods as everybody else in my community. I was in the beginning, I was on public assistance. I got a GED. I didn't have a lot of education. It was access. It was like, again, the expectation, the information, and the information was there. Being on the city council, being on the community education council, and being someone who had this information, it was definitely shared, right? In East New York, I was in District 19. Dennis Walcott had came to our meeting. Right? And of course, if Dennis Walcott is there, they got media. So you had the press there. And Dennis Walcott was there talking about, at the time, I think they were doing Common Core. They were doing Common Core. And this was around the time, I mean, there's always violence in East New York and Brownsville, according to the news. But at this time, there was a heightened percentage of violence going on in the community. And what I said to him was, when we are talking about building new educational systems and structures, are we considering the additional challenges in communities like ours?
Great question.
And he said to me, we're not going to, basically what he said, I can't remember his exact words, but he said, we're not going to dumb down the test. He said, we're not going to dumb down the test to accommodate, the children in poor communities. We're not going to, he was trying to say it in a noble way, like, we're not going to give up on them. We're not going to think that they can't succeed. And I was like, that's not what I said.
Right.
I said, I forget the framework I actually mentioned. It was something around, I forget the name, but it had something to do with emotional supports, right? Creating an environment where children have something where they can have the emotional supports they need in order to come to school and function, right? If they're up to the middle of the night because their household is either in a violent community, or they're hungry, or there's violence in the home, or whatever, right? We need to account for this information. And how do we, account for it? We can't just say, okay, we're going to give everybody takes the same Common Core test, regardless of where. Of course, neighborhoods like Park Slopes are going to succeed. Of course, neighborhoods like even Crown Heights will outperform Brownsville and East New York.
Right.
And my thing was, we all live in the same community. How then are you telling me, oh, because my daughter's in charter school, she's performing better? You're here, you're a leader, you're talking. We all live in the same community. We're all doing the same thing. We're all paying the same taxes. We all are here. What is happening there that's not happening here? And why are you not doing something about it? Right? And I hear you when you say, the thing about the money. I wasn't the only parent pushing back on this. And I wasn't just a charter parent. I was a traditional public school parent. And this is the fight I used to always have with people. They were like, oh, no, it's because you're a charter parent. No, my son went through his whole entire educational experience in a traditional public school. I'm gonna tell you about this. My son went through his whole educational experience in the traditional public school system. I am the same exact parent. My son, when it was time for him to graduate high school, could not walk. They did not let my son walk. You wanna know why? Because he failed one of the regions. And I'm like, first of all, he had in 11th grade, he had already finished his high school requirements.
Right.
So technically he didn't have to show up for 12th grade. He was in AP classes. He's in advanced classes. We struggled in junior high school because I got diagnosed with a mental health diagnosis around that time. Right. So between 5th and 8th grade, Kayvon struggled. Sanaya started kindergarten. When Kayvon started 6th grade, I want to say.
Okay.
So around that time, I was struggling. So in the 5th grade, his teacher, Miss Chavarria, I will never forget her. She reached out to me and she said, Miss Kirkland, I see that Kayvon is missing a lot of days from school and he's not able to concentrate in class. She said, can I set up a meeting with you? I said, sure. I go to the school. Me and Miss Chavarria sits down. She said, well, something I'm noticing is that Kayvon has a little attention issue. I'm thinking maybe ADHD. She said, but he is a kinesthetic learner. That's the first time I ever heard that word, even know what kinesthetic learner was until she told me. She said, he's a kinesthetic learner and he learns by touching. She said, I want him to get more into science. She said, if you can buy him a home lab or some type of lab system thing, which was a total disaster because he started burning my curtains, setting hand sanitizer because he found out that it doesn't burn the skin. Right. But I got him the lab set. But like I said, it was the conversation, right? It was that, and I get it. Teachers can be overwhelmed. But sometimes it starts with one. Because now I can share with people about what Miss Chavarria did.
I agree with everything you just said, but I'm going to go back to what I was saying before, that unfortunately, parents like you, teachers like her, are the minority.
So what do we do, Jess? What do we do? We build schools like you.
Exactly. We build schools. That's exactly why I started the school that I did. I didn't want restraints on how, because just like the fact that she just said what type of learner he is, that just touched my heart because that's what I saw in schools. All these kids, they learn differently, but they're being put in special ed because they have to stand while they learn, or they have to click around while, like, everybody learns differently, and we need to honor our kids and how they learn. So I started my own school and I'm honoring how my students learn so that they can succeed. It's going to take more, unfortunately, more than us, because the school system is not built for inner city schools. The school system is not built for different type of learners, and parents who are amazing at being parents and those few educators who are amazing educators are just going to have to continue to set that example until people catch up. And students fall through the cracks. They will. It's just.
And one other thing to note, not to cut you off, is, as far as the parents thing goes, right? Parents, and I'm going to be an advocate for parents. I am. I'm sorry.
Should be.
Hey, parents are busy too.
You're right. But
we gotta pay the bills. We gotta do the cooking. We gotta do the cleaning. We gotta do the chest up. We gotta deal with the baby daddy or the fathers. We gotta go to the doctors, the immunizations. But
teachers are
all that aside. With all that aside, I know teachers have families too. Parents sometimes parent how they were parented.
You got it.
And I think what's missing in the relationship, because this is a relationship that has conflict. Forget the system. There's the relationship that needs work between parents and educators.
Yeah.
There needs to be some grace on both sides.
Yes, agreed.
There needs to be some grace, and not to big up my charter schools again.
And speaking of charter schools, they're not my favorite.
They're not all equal. They're not all
They're
equol.
not all equal.
But
Yes.
and I always push, like I tell people, like, listen, my charter school, we even had problems, right? I remember when I had the epiphany, and I think I told you this before. My daughter would get on red. This was like their behavior structure thing where it was like these colors. And red was supposed to be like the bad or the negative, and being on green was like you had a great day.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she first went into the school and they were doing the merit system, is that what they called it? I used to be like, Sanaya, why were you on red? And I would just be having this conversation with her. And my daughter's very, she's a lot like me, but she's like me on steroids. Mm-hmm. And she, even at her little age, was like, Mom, she said, I was on red. She said the teacher put me on red because she wanted to, or something like that. And I'm like,
I believe
what?
it. I believe it. Listen, I used to get in trouble all the time with these teachers, but I had a lot to say, and I wasn't going to hold back. And this is why I don't really like charter schools, because they want kids to be like this. Right. And if you look sideways, you in trouble. And it's the same for the teachers.
So me and my daughter, yeah. So me and my daughter came up with a pact. Like when she was pushed, she was like, "Ma, she told me what she did." And I was like, "That's stupid. Why are you gonna red for that?" That's the type of relationship we had. So I was like, I'm no longer getting mad at red. So technically, charter school teachers probably looked at me the way that public school teachers look at parents. Because I was just like, yeah, that's your problem. That's your classroom rules. Those are not my rules at home. Okay. She dropped a pencil at home. I'm not going to whoop her. She's not on punishment.
You see what the issue is again? It's the system that's built. Mm-hmm. Charter school is based on funding. Mm-hmm. As a teacher, if I don't get these kids at this grade, I'm fired the next year. Teachers aren't guaranteed a position.
A lot of them left too.
I wouldn't be surprised because the pressure they put on teachers trickles down to the students. Everybody's put on pressure in a charter school, but that's why they're like, you better march or else. And as charter school parents, you're like, I'm marching because now they got the parents scared. So I have an issue with all of them. That's why I got my own school now, and I'm, I'm not gonna answer to nobody.
Yeah, me and Sanat, we like that's how we navigated through. We just did not. It wasn't like I said going to school and disrespect the teachers. It was just like we got to put this into perspective. This is what they need to do in order to, Sanat, just don't drop the pencil. Like, leave the teacher alone.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
At the macro level, it was like, I'm not going to put you on punishment for being on red because the reason you're on red is not stupid. It's dumb. Like if that's what she needs to do, and I used to push back on. Me and the principal had a great relationship, and I was like, Mr. Sims, the problem here is not the kids getting on red. The problem is that's not a good tool for classroom management.
Right. Exactly.
Because now you got the horrible anxiety about a daggone color.
It's a horrible girl. Listen, let me tell you what. This is why I made my own school.
Because I used to be like, they used to be ready to fight the teachers over red. I used to be like, and we used to have like this little corner spot where we would talk and chat. And I'm like, and I told them, I was like, y'all doing way too much on red. Like, let it go. It's not that deep. It's like I want to have. You remember when I think it was Love and Hip Hop. One of them shows, one of the characters said, "You are 9 motherfucking factor," some shit like that, right? I'm cursing. They was telling me I curse too much at home. I don't curse. First of all, they telling me I curse, but I don't curse. But anyway, I'm quoting this statement. Right. She said that to a teacher over her kid being on red. I'm like, now when it comes to a kid being held back for behavior or something like that, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that in no way, shape, or form. And if any school had ever told me that my kid was going to be held back for behavior, they would have had to deal with me too. Because I'd be like, oh, we're not doing that. We're not doing that on behavior. And I know how sometimes behavior can be disruptive in the class, but it's about that grace. It's about, I know every student in your class is not behaving like Timothy or not to pick on the boys, or Tamika or Jane or whatever, right? So I'm not a teacher, but I'm an organizer, and I had to deal with thousands of personalities. And because I had to deal with all those personalities, I used to put people in tiers. And I said, let me choose my battles here. Let me choose. I remember doing a parent observance day for Sanaya. I don't know what Sanaya, she did something. And I had to sit in the classroom. And I'm sitting there in the class. Now, my child is sitting in crisscross applesauce doing what she's supposed to do.
I love Christmas.
And I'm sitting there watching kids crawling under the table. And I'm sitting, I'm like,
what am I here?
So I went over I said, excuse me, sweetheart, why are you crawling under the table? The kid said, I'm bored. I said, well, is there something else we can do? Because crawling under the table is not what we're supposed to be doing right now. Right. I said, so let's stand up and let's figure out something else we can do. I said, do you like to draw? And he's like, yes. I said, okay, so let's go over here and draw something. I said, what's your favorite animal? And he was like,
teacher?
The teacher was with the other kids at Crystal's episodes reading a book. They were on the carpet reading, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching. It was a little boy and a little girl crawling under the table, just aimlessly crawling, just gone. And she just was trying to stay focused and read and not react. I couldn't sit there and watch that. So I said, let's go over here. I said, you don't want to sit with the class and read? He was like, no. I said, well, let's go over here and draw. I said, what's your favorite animal? And he told me his favorite. And I said, so draw for me your favorite animal. He sat in the chair and he started to draw. And he was no longer crawling on the floor. So then I went over to the little girl. She was not as easy to convince to get up off the floor. She kind of gave me attitude and pushed back. And then I said, okay, I'm going to leave you alone. But then she kept staring at me because she wanted attention. She wanted me to come back and say something to her again. So I was like, no, I'm not going to come back over there. I said, if you want to talk to me, you're going to have to get up and come over here. And she just kept looking at me. Then she started giggling and she got up. And then she was like, she came over to me. She was like, I want to draw. I said, okay, we'll get you some paper and you can draw. And it wasn't the same interaction. Like they both had very different responses to me, but it was like, okay, like sometimes kids get bored, and like we just stated, they learn differently. And so again, I'm not a teacher. I'm just observing this. I'm a people person. and I just observe that
absolutely right. Person. There are teachers. You can be a
well, I'm a teacher for adults. I teach adults. Right. So which honestly is the same.
Yeah, no, it is the same. It is the same. But you can be a wonderful teacher with no management skills. Mm-hmm. You could be a wonderful teacher with no people skills. Being a teacher is more than just being able to teach math or teach reading or teach science. You have to be a communicator. You have to be kind. You have to be flexible. There's so many skills.
But are they being taught that? Because I know this teacher, this was a charter school teacher, and I felt like she did not have the skills.
That's not what's taught. Well. What you're taught when you go to school for teaching, you're taught how to teach. Then you're thrown into a public school with 30 kids, and that's where you learn how to manage. Mm-hmm. You're not taught how to manage kids. There might be a class here or there, but it's not really taught, right? So there are some teachers, like the teacher that your son had that talked about like different learning styles, where you're just, even if she wasn't a teacher, that's who she is. She's observant, she's flexible, she's there and present. On top of that, she went to school to be a teacher. So she's amazing, right? But not everyone has, and that's like in every job. Somebody could be really good at IT work, but every time you call them, they're rude. So you never want to call them for help, right? So you have
it's a people thing. It's a people, like, you know, I can't really speak specifically, but I had an experience with a coworker that lacked people skills, right? And so I teach, big ups to me. I teach these things that people need, all right? Like cultural curiosity. I teach that in my class. And it talks about implicit biases. It talks about how to have courageous conversations. And I teach on interrupting oppression. You know, like how to connect with different cultures and how to deal with differences. But as a life coach, I focus on, you know, communication and delivery of messages. Because in order to build strong relationships with your people, the people that you connect with, you have to learn how to be more present and self-aware.
You do.
And I think, yeah, my thing is like, I get the teaching part. I think there should be more workshops and more supports, right? Professional development. Like when they have those professional development days, those professional developments shouldn't be focused on how to deliver the best math process or testing skills. It should be more on the classroom management and people skills.
You're right. You're right.
Because they're doing teachers a disservice. You could be, like you said, you could be the best at IT. You can probably get, if given the right tools to manage your class, you can probably have your students passing Brooklyn Tech tests like nothing coming out of 8th grade. But I think that's the piece that's missing, that interpersonal training on how to have, because children are people.
Children are people. And that's why also I'm very passionate about starting with the little kids, because little kids learn early how to treat others, right? So you can have a class of preschool kids and you'll have bullies. Yeah, at a preschool level. If you don't teach kids early how to deal with others, how to have empathy, that's how you end up with that IT person who can't communicate with others because they weren't taught at a young age how to communicate their feelings in a productive way, in a way that yields results. So now we have all school systems with people who can't communicate with each other. And you were mentioning that before too, like parents parent how they were taught, right? If you weren't taught how to parent, you're not going to be a good parent.
Nobody teaches you how to, like, it's those unintentional learning skills, right? Because some of us, we parent exactly how our parents parented us, right? But some of us take little bits and pieces and come up with our own thing, right? Some people just, you know, didn't have that parental connection, you know, for what one reason or another. Their parent, and it's just generational. That's why I said there needs to be some grace. There needs to be some major grace, because this could be 3 or 4 generations of miseducation.
Big time. Right? And also parents are getting younger.
Well, so, I was a young parent. That's not an excuse.
The reason why I say that's an excuse, again, you listen, you got to stop comparing yourself. You are extraordinary. Okay? You are not the norm. But how can we expect, if you are an 18-year-old with a child, how do we expect you to have a thinking ability of an adult who's 30 years old? We can't. So if you don't show up,
30-year-olds that don't know how to think either.
So that makes it worse. So it makes it even worse, right?
I think me being a young parent helped me to be the person I am today, because I would have been cutting up and doing a whole lot of other things I didn't say.
Minority. Listen, this is what I do with all my students.
You better get it together. I need to eat.
Let me tell you what I do with all my students. I tell them, pat yourself on the back and say, I'm amazing. And pat yourself on the other back and say, because Shimona, you are amazing. You're not the norm. Most people in general become their environment. They just become their environment. It takes extraordinary people to come out of their environment and be something different.
Our ancestors had us young. You know, our lineage started from, you know, our great grandmothers.
But life was different back then.
It was very different. I honestly feel that it's less about, and I get what you're saying, because it's true. It's not easy when you're a young person and you haven't really developed into who you want to be and who you are, and now you're responsible for someone else, right? You depending on your family structure, you may not have a set of values that you can live by, right? So I totally get that. But that's where the work needs to be done. The work needs to be done on building stronger value systems, getting rid of some of our old stinking thinking, and building better interpersonal skills. And that is across the board. And that's what I said, that grace between educators and parents. and more so in our culture of Black women teachers and Black men and women teachers and our Black community when it comes to our the education of our generations, you know, our future. Because the bottom line is we're going to continue on with the same statistics that have been haunting us for generations if we don't get a handle of ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. If we don't find that sense of grace and that way to coexist and partner. I remember I told this one teacher, I was so proud of my statement. I said, we are a triad. Me, you, and my child. And my child has a voice. You may not like what they're saying right now. You can get offended and you take the time you need to be offended, but take it as feedback. Feedback is just information. You don't have to agree or disagree. It's not bad or good. It's information. Right. And so if a child is telling you, I don't feel comfortable with how you speak to me, and they may not say it in those words, I'm saying it, you know, the kid may be like, oh, I don't like the teacher or whatever. Right. Instead of getting mad, like, oh, this kid don't like me, this kid is rude, say, well, what is my interaction like with this child that this child is not receiving me? Exactly. Right. And what do I need to learn or what do I need to know in order to make that different? Because at the end of the day, y'all are going to have that relationship whether you like it or not, because you're the teacher and that's the student.
What's funny is that as the parent, that has been your experience, and as a teacher, because my kids, especially little kids, they have no filter, right? So if they're bored in class, they're telling me.
Tell you about yourself.
They're telling me, like, I'm bored, I don't want to do this. But for me as a teacher, how I receive it is, okay, you need to move your body. That's what you're telling me, right? You're bored. That's okay. I get bored sometimes too. We turn this into a conversation. But what happens in the background is, don't say that to your teacher. Yeah. Come over here, right? So there's this dialogue happening at home where they're putting the kids down because they're actually speaking and using their voice. Meanwhile, me as a teacher, I'm like, good job for telling me how you feel.
You're doing strength-based talking. You're doing strength-based communicating. And you're right. A lot of people don't know this. I have, through my work, have a lot of emotional intelligence. This is what I study. I study people and building emotional intelligence. This is what I stand on. This is how I operate, right? And I get it. This is why Monday Night Chat is important.
Tune in every Monday.
Every Monday. And on my website, I am going to be having like tutorials and workshops and stuff when I get that built. And doing, you know, more public speaking around this stuff. But I do appreciate your perspective, right? I do appreciate your perspective. And I know I gave you a hard time.
It was wonderful. I love it. It was wonderful. Because the thing is that at the end of the day, I feel like we agree. We agree that our kids deserve better. We agree that the school system should be better. And we agree that parents should be better. So now we're able to come from both two sides of it and find where we can get the resolution. So this is the way conversations need to go. We need to come from both aspects, say what the issue is, and then now resolve it. Because that's the only way to make progress.
Yeah, because people are really, like, to be honest, as human beings, we're struggling. We're struggling. If it's not emotional, it's financial, it's physical. You know, our Black people deal with a lot of health issues. Black people have always dealt with mental health issues, but are unwilling and don't have access to support.
Yep.
You know, emotional a lot of stuff, right? You're talking about domestic violence, sexual assault, all sorts of things. And not to say that it doesn't happen in other cultures, but it is extremely prevalent in our culture, in our community. And we are getting to the point where we're trying to access, you know, or be more willing to open up to this. Like, look at all the exposures going on online with celebrities and people doing stuff. And people are just mimicking things that happen to them, to be honest with you, whether the trauma is exact or not.
It's all trauma.
It's all trauma. And it's not giving nobody a pass on doing something weird. The point is that people are responding to their own trauma, and we have to stop it, right? And so in the thick of everything, you know, I just want to say thank you so much for like having this conversation with me. And of course, we're going to have it again. And we're going to, you know, I want to start like a magazine or something where, you know, you guys can start writing something that we can start pushing out to folks to start hearing these perspectives on education and really like giving people a framework on what needs to happen. maybe one or two people will take action, but that's fine.
It's more than one or two than we had before, right?
Right.
Little by little
So,
will affect change. So
right.
it's
I honestly, with my whole heart, believe in the political process. I don't believe in politicians. I believe in the political process when used accordingly, because in people there's power, and we have relinquished so much of our power over time. And I feel like our educational system, just like a lot of other systems that we have, can be dismantled and rebuilt if we really take the time and really honor what we want. And it's about worth. Sometimes we don't feel like we deserve these things in our community.
very true.
It's about
They
worth.
don't deserve, and like even because when parents want to enroll their children into my program, the things that I talk about with like listening to your children, listening to their voice, they're like, what? Like this is very foreign things
Kids
because
were
you
told
are
to be
not
seen and not heard.
exactly right. So I think that's also a part is that now I, as the teacher side, I can be that teacher that listens, that is tolerant, that is able to see parents have their own trauma. And I need to guide the parents just as much as the teachers. And you, as that parent, knowing teachers also have trauma and helping, because for me, as much as there's the system, I'm about the people.
Yeah.
Because you can build up the system, but if the people aren't built up, they're not going to feed into it.
We're
We
not gonna
need,
fix it too.
we need to
Absolutely.
build people up, change their mindsets so that they can make that effective change, you know? So it's work, but it's good work.
It's definitely work. What John Lewis used to say, we got to get into good trouble.
That's
Um,
it.
so thank you so much, Jess, for joining me tonight. And for our guest, what Luna, I think that was in the chat, was
She was all in the chat giving all her
on the
stuff.
chat,
Loved
giving
it.
some dope feedback to us. Really appreciate Amanda. Okay. Thank you, Amanda, for all of your insight. We were seeing how you were encouraging us and challenging us and supporting what we were saying. Amanda is great. We gotta have you on, Amanda. So oh, that's my little sister. I'm like, who's Amanda? That's funny. My mentee is on here. That is so hilarious. I'm like, who's Amanda? I'm like, thank you, Amanda. This is the one I was talking about,
Oh,
Jess.
yeah, she was singing your praises, girl.
That is so hilarious.
It's so funny.
Oh
But
man.
one thing I could say before we close is that if there are any parents who are listening, especially if you have a child 5 and under, and you want to learn how to teach your child the way they like to learn, just like Shimona talked about, like every kid has their own learning style. I have a video parent guide that teaches parents how to assess your child, how to understand your child so that you can teach them how to read. So if anybody's interested in that, then they can reach out to you and get more information on that. I got your email.
Just make sure you put your email and your and Instagram and stuff in the chat box so that Amanda and I can have the files and share it out. One day I'm gonna be more organized and share out people's resources.
It's okay. One day at a time. We're
One day
all
at a
going through
time.
stuff, right? One day at a
Yeah.
time.
I mean, once my website is up, I can do more stuff that where everything is in one place and I don't have to feel the pressure of like having this place, that place, that place. And Amanda's gonna help me. So we so it will be a pleasure to have, links to your website on my website, so that people can find you through me as well. But thank you so much. You have a wonderful night. As well, we gotta have a cousin day.
Yes.
Jessica is married to my favorite cousin, so we have to make a cousin day, so we can all hang out and see each other again. It was a pleasure. You go and get some rest because I know you stayed up for me. I
No
appreciate
problem.
you.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
All right, you have a good night. Bye bye.